Hi, my name is Amber Campbell. I'm a freelance editor and indie author. My first collection of poetry, The Ones, comes out on September 26th. So this channel is all about writing, editing, and self-publishing. So today I want to dive more into the traditional publishing side and talk about the time that I was a young adult and middle grade reader intern for a literary agency. So I'm going to go into three different parts. Firstly is the timeline and everything I did while I was there. The second one is how to find one that you can apply for. And thirdly, everything that I got out of it that I still use to this day. So firstly is my actual time. So this is way back in 2015. I had graduated from college in 2014 with my bachelor's in creative writing. And I was following everybody on Twitter. Twitter was the place to be for the writing and publishing world. It's fizzling out for reasons we won't get into because I think we all know them. But that was actually where I found a lot of the agents who I still follow now over there on Instagram. But I was in love with this author named A.G. Howard, who wrote the Splintered series. I actually went to see her in person at a signing sometime in 2015. I don't remember exactly when. But it was actually because I saw that book cover of Splintered, and I'll put it up somewhere here. It was so gorgeous that it just did not leave my head. I had to go buy it, had to read the whole series. It was amazing. But it was reading her acknowledgments pages. And that's something I recommend any writer and author to do. And it was on those acknowledgement pages that I realized which agency she was in, and I highly recommend reading acknowledgments for any authors and writers who aspire to be traditionally published and represented, because that'll give you a good idea of which agencies you should look into, which agents you might get along with or vibe with. And so she was a part of the Bent Literary Agency, and she was repped by the founder, Jenny Bent. So in January 2015, it was January or end of December of 2014, but January 2015, I'm pretty sure, is when I applied. I found it through Twitter. So from Twitter, I was following TBA, the Bent agency, and from there they would talk about their blogs. So I went and I read their blogs. Another big thing, if you come across somebody who has a blog, follow it. That's the biggest way you find out about these opportunities. So I went ahead and found it. They were looking for a YA MG intern for a brand new agent who I don't even know if this time she was announced. She's no longer with the agency. She's actually gone into film. Her name was Heather Flaherty. I really hope I'm pronouncing that last name right. I'm so sorry if I'm not. But it was for her, and they needed to run some tests, of course, like any interview does. But this one, they actually sent me 2 manuscripts of stories that were going to be published in 2015, just later in the year. And they sent me a template of the beta reader report, which honestly, I'm not going to lie, about 75% of that is still the basis of the beta reader reports that I offer on my freelancing opportunities. So they needed me to read it, let them know my thoughts on the plot, what the plot was, first of all, write it out, then provide my thoughts on it, on the characters, what I thought of them, were they relatable, were they likable. And then you also they did POV style. They did one other. I added more to it. I added like setting. Maybe they had setting, but I added dialogue and I added voice. But they also had one of any miscellaneous thoughts, like any weird things that stuck out that really didn't fit a certain way, or just an overall emotion you were getting at one point. And then your final thoughts. And then you had to provide a rating out of 5. So like if this book, you just checked it out from the library and you read it, what would you rate it on Goodreads? And I had to go through 2 of them. Oddly enough, I think I rated them both pretty poorly. I think I gave both of them 3s, and I just, across the board, I was like, this is fan fiction for one of them. It was almost like a One Direction fan fiction for those of you who are old enough to remember those days. And the other one, I just remember I didn't vibe with it, but I was brutally honest. And I think that's why I got it, because I wasn't just praising them. And so in February of 2015, I received the email from the Bent agency, and specifically also from Heather, that said I was chosen as one of her 3 interns. I won't give names of the other 2 interns chosen because they actually are successful authors now, and I don't want to, put them into this. I don't know. I think a lot of them are happy to say that they worked for this agency like I did. But my goal was to read, as you can probably tell, young adult and middle grade. I read a couple new adult, and I think one adult, if something came by my desk that I actually liked. And in that time, if my math is correct, 126 manuscripts is what I finished from February 2015 when I started until September 2016 when I left. In that time, I was reading about 1 to 3 manuscripts a week, depending on my workload. So this was the time I had, like I said, just graduated college, and so I don't believe I had a full-time job here. Did I have the full-time job yet? No, I didn't. I was working part-time jobs. So it was super easy for me to read them in between, and basically I'd go ahead and read the manuscript, and I tried to have it back to her within a couple days. It was a really quick turnaround. And Heather and I grew very close. I don't know if the other 2 readers grew close with her, but I know for me, she would actually have me go through her emails, like she gave me access to it, and then was like, hey, look over these, let me know which ones intrigue you, which ones don't. And so I would go through it and I'd say, hey, you know what, this story sounds solid, it's not my cup of tea, but intern A might like it, or intern B might love it. And I'd let her know. And then there were some where I was like, it just needs more oomph. And so there were some where I was on the fence, and of course, anything I was on the fence about, she would go ahead and take it. If not, I would let her know, hey, this might be a rejection based on the ones that you've picked up so far. And I remember it was 6 weeks into my official internship that I read a manuscript, and I literally emailed Heather and I said, you need to represent this author. Like, go write her an email right now before you even read it. Just, you need to represent her. That author ended up being Julia Walton, who wrote Words on Bathroom Walls. That was the first manuscript I read. So 6 weeks of reading, that was the first one I read where I said, this needs to be on the bookshelf right now. And that happened a couple more times where I was just, we need this, and they grew up to be very, very successful. But I loved it. I love that time. I love seeing that aspect of it. Even now, I would love to be represented. I would love to be traditionally published. I have nothing against it. But I also love the challenges that come with self-publishing and learning what is that word? I'm trying to think of. I guess just the nuances of self-publishing. And the only big thing that I would love to do is actually see a team with like cover design, because that's the only one I really don't have any experience with. As I talked about in my last video, and I'll put the card somewhere up here, is that I designed my cover myself in Canva after studying poetry covers over 6 months of releases to kind of see where the trends were, what was being successful, what was doing well, and that's where I got my idea from. But I would love to see the more intricate young adult covers done, because that is a whole nother ballpark. Second part, where to find these. So like I said, I found it from the blog, from Twitter. Twitter is sort of dying, unfortunately, because it was the best place to find all the writers and authors and cover designers, all that good stuff, agents. They were all on there. But most of them have migrated to Instagram, which is where I do most of my marketing. So I highly suggest going on there. You want to follow every agent, even if you're not interested in, submitting to them, querying to them, or, maybe they don't even represent it, but you maybe like the other books they've put out. Because for me personally, I love this cozy witch vibe we're doing, like The Lost Apothecary. Stunning. Loved that. Had never read a book like that before. Now I'm obsessed with like the cozy witchy kind of stuff. I don't see myself ever writing one, but I would love to work with an agent who works with writers who do that. So just follow all of them, because that's how you're going to find opportunities nowadays, is through social media. It could be Instagram, it could be Threads now, as long as Threads around. It really could be anything. Back then, you could even go on Tumblr and find things. But stick to social media. Facebook, they're not on Facebook. That's really the only one I don't think you'll find them. And LinkedIn is another one that the writing community really isn't on a whole lot. But I found one, I think it was 3 weeks ago, and it was for a publishing house. And then 2 months ago, it was for Little Brown. And basically these huge ones. A lot of them are, you have to be in New York. Now my puppy's at my door. You have to be in New York. I am not in New York. I am Texas. The one I did for the Bent Literary Agency was remote. They were based in New York. I was down here in Texas. But what you want to do is find the ones that are remote. Those are usually the unpaid ones, but it's fine. Anything to get you in that traditional published door is what you want to do. Because, yes, when you're querying agents, you know, you're not necessarily going, hey, I'm going to intern for you for 2 years and then you're going to represent me. It's not quite how it works. However, after reading queries for over 1.5 years, nearly 2 years, I have now learned just the quick hooks that a query letter needs. Hence, one of the reasons I offer revision and writing services as part of my freelancing editorial services. But it's just, you learn what everybody's looking for. You learn what the trends are. For instance, I knew that the books that I chose that, you know, Heather ended up representing would be the ones on shelves in 2 to 3 years. So you saw the trends occurring before the rest of the reader world did, which is really cool. And you're kind of able to pick up on what's coming out, what's going to be really hot, really big, even before everyone else does. And also, it's a really good thing to say, hey, you know what, I've enjoyed my 2-year internship with this agency, but I wanted to check it out at an editorial house. Can't pronounce words today, I'm sorry. But that would be another one I would love to do. And I've actually applied to a couple jobs. There's very few remote ones once they actually start paying money. But again, there's a couple different sites, and I'll link them down below. Okay, so I readjusted a little bit, went to go check on the dog at the door. She's already gone, unfortunately. But really quick, my very last point is don't worry about any opportunities you find being unpaid if they're remote. This is such a valuable experience if you want to get into publishing, if you want to get into editing, writing, agenting, anything you want, that's the best way to do it. And an agent is going to help you see all sides of it. So in my particular internship, I didn't really get to see the editorial side, but I'm sure if I asked, she could have asked an author and I could have been looped in just to watch everything. But I do recommend being between like the ages of 18 to 23 only because that's when you tend to have the least financial obligation, so you don't mind spending time on an unpaid internship. And as we all know, you don't get paid in publishing. I think most of them, like, they'll live in New York and they're still getting paid like $45,000 a year. Like, I can live quite comfortably down here in Texas. From what I have heard, you can't live quite comfortably on $45,000 in New York. So you don't go into publishing in any industry that involves fiction to make money. You do it because you love it. So take any kind of information, any kind of knowledge, experience you can get, and just work on yourself until you can start climbing. One of the reasons I do freelancing right now is because I was trying to get back into editorial work. I would love to open up my own editorial company, maybe even publishing company, and kind of spread out that way. You know, help the writers that I know personally, walk them through self-publishing, things like that. But my time as a lit agency intern was one of the funnest times of my life, and I never left my house. It was so great. So scour social media, scour blogs, look for those opportunities. Again, there will be links down below to find your own opportunities and the best places to find them. And I will try to find more as I go and just kind of keep updating it as we go. But that is all for today. I think that was a very lengthy video. I didn't really mean it to be. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, comment, share, please subscribe. Really appreciate it. And I will see you all again next Friday for more self-publishing, writing, and editing stories and tips. Bye.